All right, welcome to Get Your Rocks Off. This is our premiere episode, and I'm here. I'm your host, Jake Szufnarowski, and I'm here with Marc Brownstein of the Disco Biscuits and Conspirator and about 82 other bands. And we're in his studio on the third floor of his house, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he is holding in his lap 3 awards from Red Rocks, the Park and Amphitheater.
Literally getting my rocks off right now.
2 in the lap and 1 in the hand. Those are... Tell us about those awards, Mark. You get those every time you sell out the Red Rocks? Do you have to sell it out?
You have to headline. If you're headlining Red Rocks, you get a plaque, and they're made out of the actual rock. They chip them off, So I guess really because they have 100 headliners a summer, you know what I mean? They're eventually there may not be no rocks left. They need to go to Moab and start. They're going to need to start taking these rocks from somewhere else pretty soon, or we're going to lose the natural beauty of.
Or maybe they're just creating more and more seats to make it harder for people to sell it out every year.
But yeah, this is like the jam band Grammy, We know we're not getting Grammys, but we get these beautiful awards every year that we have 3 of them now, and I guess that was enough. So we didn't do Red Rocks this year. We were like,
just because you had no more room for the awards, right?
My table is full here. Sorry.
So here we are in suburban Pennsylvania. Long way from home for a New York City boy.
Yeah, suburbs. I love it. I love it here. I tell people who live in New York, we were up in a party in New York on Saturday, and they were asking me about Philadelphia, and I tell them every time, listen, if you've got $50 million in the bank, Manhattan is for you, okay? But if you're a working class musician like us, Philadelphia, you could really live the life. It's nice down here.
And you can, as I said, we're on the 3rd floor of this home of yours.
3rd floor, yeah.
While you have a construction crew laboring away down on the 1st floor.
Democrats hiring Republicans, job creators.
Well, here is the job creator. I pulled up at his house, and there was a minivan from his handyman's company with a big Romney Ryan sticker on the back.
Democrats hiring Republicans, you gotta love it.
The irony.
First we vote for Obama, and then we crush their dreams, and then we give them jobs. So,
and I'm sure it's better than minimum wage, too. You give them benefits as well?
The guy's doing pretty good down there right now, I got to be honest with you.
I'll bet he is.
Pretty good finishing that kitchen up.
Is this the first kitchen you designed?
This is my 2nd kitchen design, actually. I love designing. If I were to ever leave the music business, I would probably go in some way, shape, or form into the real estate business. I'm probably gonna.
I see that you and Barbara could partner up in yet another project, huh?
I feel like, Magner's the real landlord. Barbara and Magner are both landlords. I'm a landlord now too, but only because they're landlords. You know what I mean? My whole life, I've been like one step behind Barbara and Magner. Whatever they do, I let them do it first. Figure out if it works.
That probably worked really well in your drug years, huh?
and then I do it. You know what I mean? Magner bought a house, lived in it, and then he moved out, bought a new house, rented it out to the other people, and I saw him doing that, and I was like, hey man, we have exactly the same job, so if he can do that, I know I can do it, and then I go and figure out how to do it. How the hell did he do that? I go start talking to mortgage people, and I do. Even buying a house the first time around, I never, when you rent, you can't fathom how to buy a house, And then all of these jokers were buying places, and I was like, well, man, if they're buying a place, it must be possible, So I did it. I bought
Especially
my
when you bought your first place, they were giving loans to anybody.
2005, right at the very, very peak of the market, so that was a bad move right there. Can't sell that ever, probably. That's why you say, well, you moved out of your place and you're renting it out. Yeah, that's my only choice. Otherwise, I have to give them $300,000 back or something. You know what I mean?
Hey, you and Dan Kirch from the New Deal still lives in London because he can't get rid of his place.
Is that true?
He's trapped in London.
Wow. Yeah. Because he bought it
he bought it the height. So
right after he got
a lot of money if he sold his place.
Right after he got his record. But don't they have deals now? They must have deals for you. Not sure. Real estate is a great business, but it's like a nice side it is like a nice side project. You know what I mean? It's a good thing to do on the side, get your money working for you and stuff. But that's all it is. I do. It is like a hobby, having another house and fixing it up. It's really fun to watch. It's like creating a kitchen is equally as exciting as creating a song. Taking anything from scratch and writing it or making it or producing it is when you're a creative person. That's how you get your rocks off.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I rehabbed a house or two in my day.
Oh, have I seen your places? I don't know if the podcast listeners here haven't been over to Snuffy's place. You gotta go online and check out some of the pictures because it was interesting.
Interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
I'm sure our real estate dabbling is fascinating to the people listening at home.
So boring.
Exactly. So let's get into music. You, as you stated earlier today, are a professional musician, and you laughed much like I did, because the concept of that is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You started playing music in the Disco Biscuits in, 1996?
94, we got together and started playing, and by 1995, we were called the Disco Biscuits. And
you started out as a basically run-of-the-mill jam band, correct?
Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead, Fish covers, Santana, all the super boring stuff that was really exciting in 1995.
Right. Exciting to who? Maybe you, maybe.
Like fraternity kids, thought it was cool back then. I guess those guys are all 42 and have 3 kids and they're bald and they're you know what I mean, in their pools and shit, holding their kids. I see them on Facebook. They're literally in their pools, holding their kids and they're bald. And I'm like, God, that guy didn't age well.
Those are real people. I thought that was a stock photo that they were putting up.
But they were there and they were on acid and they liked Fish covers back then. You know what I mean? So, but it was, we were a run-of-the-mill jam band, 95, 96, 97. And that's when things started to get interesting.
Now, you guys, you were really groundbreaking and at the forefront of weaving electronic music threads into jam-based and improvisational-based music.
When you think about that now as groundbreaking, it's funny because it's just so run-of-the-mill now. Now it's the most run-of-the-mill thing in the jam band scene is tinkering with electronic sounds, and you know what I mean? It's the jam band world split off into two beasts. It was like the bluegrass and blues-based music, roots music, and electronic music. And the thing about becoming an electronic jam band, which is hard to grapple with, is that you're mimicking a kind of music, but you're never going to make it sound like that kind of music. I guess the New Deal got as close as you can get to really making the live sound electronic. And I actually remember in 1999 or 2000 when
the New Deal did that using mostly analog synthesizers.
Right.
For the most part, Jamie was using Moogs.
Well, what they did probably that was really smart was actually listen to electronic music first before trying to mimic it. So that would have been a good idea. No, I mean, we listened to Spangle and we listened to Hallucinogen and, Simon Posford stuff early on. And we listened to The Orb. We definitely listened to stuff. But, I mean, they really got into
But the New Deal also didn't start as a jam band.
No, they were trying to be a progressive, live progressive breakbeat house. I saw the flyer.
As their stickers said.
I saw the flyer.
But those guys were still at least 2 years behind you in the entry into the live electronic music scene.
Oh, I remember there was a kid named Matt Willie who used to come to a lot of shows. A big fish head who came to Biscuit shows, and he was a friend of my nephew's from out in Long Island. Or they at least knew each other when they were 10. And he came up to me one day and he was like, there's a band that really is good at what you guys are trying to do. And I think that he wasn't trying to say it in a way that crushed my hopes and dreams. But when he said it, it was like, okay. Do you know that you just said that there's a band that's actually good at what you do? That's what you just said to me. You just fucking looked at me in the eye and were like, there is a band that's good at this. You should check them out. And I
Isn't it a shame that real bluegrass fans never said that to Michael Kang and Crush the Spirits of the String Cheese incident? It could have saved so many festival goers so much hissing in their ears by those guys.
Disclaimer, I love the String Cheese incident, Michael Kang, and everything that comes along with them.
He says with a wink.
Can I please get back on Electric Forest this summer? So the thing is that we then went to see them, and we were like, oh my God, these guys are really playing, like they're really doing what we're trying to do. Like, and so that was about 12 years ago. We never figured out how to do, we were like, okay, well that's how you do it. And then we like never really figured it out. I think partially because in the end, we really didn't want to do that. That wasn't like, at that time, we didn't want the Disco Biscuits to, if you listen to our music, we're a jam band. Like, you know, as electronic and crazy and weird and tweaky and dark as it gets, it all rests on the song catalog. And the songs are rock songs that then we improvise over. That's what a jam band is, right? You have a rock song, and then you get to the solo section, and you let it go for 15 minutes, right? And then the really good bands don't solo in those sections. They do interplay, full band interplay. Those are the really, really good bands. It's talking to somebody like you about it who despises jam bands from the get-go, you know, makes it all the more humorous, you know what I mean?
I love jam bands, especially when they play on the Rocks Off concert group. I would love more jam bands, at least a few left that can sell tickets, to come and play on my boat.
Humphreys, we're talking to you.
the last jam band.
The last bastion of jam bandium. And
one thing that differentiated the Biscuits beyond the fact that you played rock music or rock songs was the fact that you had a guitar player, which automatically almost disqualifies you from being an electronic band.
A conundrum that I'm reliving for the second time in my life right now, you know, with Conspirator, because Conspirator actually is an electronic band, but we have a guitarist, and so it almost disqualifies us from being true EDM, despite the fact that when we go into the studio, our songs are true EDM. We're making them the exact same way that the EDM players make them. Only difference is that when we get on stage and we press play on our computer, which we do press play, we actually trigger. We're not just a spacebar play. We have everything's cut up and split up into samples, and Magner's actually triggering like Bass Nectar does. So instead of doing what Steve Aoki does and pressing play on the spacebar, standing on top of the table and shaking up the champagne and spraying it on the crowd and stage diving and getting into a kayak and like kayaking through the crowd. Disclaimer, I love Steve Aoki. I love his dad's restaurant, Benihana.
There's something to be said for that level of performance.
His sister, Devin Aoki, is unbelievably hot, you know, and he's a super cool guy, but the guy's a pusher. He's a button pusher. You know what I mean?
Those are a lot of those guys.
And he's admittedly he's not trying to pretend like he's not. The guy literally is surfing through the crowd for 10 minutes at a time while his computer just plays the music. So he's not pretending to be something that he's not, which I have a lot of respect for. But we're doing it more like Bass Nectar, where we have it all split up in Ableton, and everything is able to be triggered at any time. We can change it. The reason we do that is because we like, as jam band guys, we like to have the ability to change it on the fly. And actually, great DJs, that's what it's about. Great DJs it's about. There's a huge controversy in the EDM world right now. Calvin Harris recently said that he endorsed the button pushing in a way that he said, well, if you're going to have these huge stage shows with the LEDs and the video, it's hard to read the crowd, and you know what I mean, because it's already has to be synced up to the stage show. It's like an arena show. It's like an arena rock show. It all needs to be pre-planned in order for it to come across. And he was sort of endorsing it, and it sparked a gigantic controversy, because what a lot of purists are saying is that's fucking bullshit. If you're a DJ, you need to be able to read your crowd, change the song, mash it up in the middle, bring something else in. That's what there's an art form there that people have forgotten about. Mostly. There's guys like A-Track, who's known to be a world-class, award-winning DJ who still DJs, you know what I mean? And then there's guys like RJD2 who actually DJ still on turntables at the show, and it's an art form what RJD2 does, but it's lost on the culture, And we, as jam band guys, it can't be lost on us because we're like ADD. We're up there and we need to change. We need to be able to make every show different. And that's the thing that's similar between a jam band and a great DJ that has made where we've gone, like the evolution, a very natural progression for meeting in the middle, because it's all about controlling the room, and it's all about knowing what you need to do in the moment to control the room, and you need to have artistic freedom. You can't be locked into a computer track. You need to be able to switch it up right on the spot at any point in time. If it's going really well, you need to be able to hit loop and sit and loop in where you are. If you need more energy, you need to be able to get the fuck out of where you are and change to somewhere that's going to bring the crowd on the journey. And so, but again, there's a guitar there, and we wouldn't have it any other way. For us, that's...
Do you find that Machete, your guitar player and Conspirator, that he approaches playing the guitar a bit differently than Barber from the Disco Biscuits?
They're very, very different players. They're both geniuses in their own way. Machete is more... he's a little bit more, let's say how to describe the difference between Machete and Barber. Barber's a little bit more like heady about the whole entire experience. He's thinking more about what's going to happen 10 minutes from now, whereas in Machete it's more about that single moment in time. You know what I mean? It's more about that bar and less about the big picture, and they have just a very different sound. Machete's more like metal influenced. He has a cleaner tone and
kind of a more attacking sound, whereas Barber's more meandering.
I wouldn't say meandering as in a negative context. If there was a word that
Barber sees an end point and takes his time getting there and builds it in a certain way, whereas
Barber's
Machete just plays what he needs to play.
Patient
at that time,
and Machete's more aggressive. And they create totally different things, and I wouldn't say that one is better than the other. The Barber style is clearly better for what the Disco Biscuits do. Machete style is clearly better for what Conspirator does. It works.
What I was
really
getting at
well.
is that Machete's style allows you guys to be more of an EDM sort of band live.
By far,
Stuff you couldn't do with Barber.
By far, when Conspirator invited Barber to play with Conspirator like 4 or 5 years ago in Colorado, he came off stage and was like, I don't like playing with you guys. It's not my thing. It's not my style. The way I play doesn't fit in with that kind of music. He almost said, I'm not really sure what you want me to do there, whereas Machete's more just gets up there and just starts going for it. You know what I mean? But again, you listen back to it, and it's, even with the track pumping, there's something that guitar brings into it that makes it special and different. Like in a world where all of the EDM is starting to sound exactly the same, where Dylan Francis and Skrillex and Knife Party, I can't tell the difference. A year ago, it was like, whoa, this is Skrillex, you know what I mean? And now I'm not sure. Is it Skrillex? Is it Knife Party? Is it Dylan Francis? Who is it? Is it Zed's Dead? It could be fucking anyone at this point, The thing is when you hear Conspirator, it can only be Conspirator. It can only be that. And that's the goal. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
What was it you saw in Machete's playing previously to him being in Conspirator that made you think he'd be right for this new band you were starting?
It was all happened naturally. We never thought about it. What happened was we needed a guitarist for a Biscuit show, for a string of Biscuit shows after John broke his hand. And Machete, somebody was like, you should try out Machete. And I literally was like, really? Machete? Come on. The guy from Rack? No, I'm not in. And then the guy...
It was about as fish of a fish derivative band as you could get.
one thing that I've been trying to explain to Machete for the last 3 years is that, for me, like, the thing about it is like, because you see everybody else reacting to that sound doesn't mean make that sound. You know what I mean? It's like, make a different sound and get them to react to that. You know what I mean? It's like you can't be a copycat band and survive. The thing that differentiated the Biscuits was when we started playing electronic music. And if we had never done that, we would have sunk fast, And the thing about Machete was his taking him out of that world and getting him into EDM, where there are no guitarists in the band, automatically created, it fixed that whole problem for him creatively, because now we can make a track, we can make it sound exactly like something else if we want. Like, we have a new track that sounds a lot like a Dylan Francis song, but almost in the sense that Big Gigantic has this going on too. They can make like a dubstep song, but there's a saxophone in it. It sounds like Big Gigantic. You cannot mistake Big Gigantic for something else. You hear it and instantly you're like, that's Big Gigantic. That's like what Conspirator has going, because it's like you hear the EDM sounds and then you hear the guitar and the bass and a little live drums. There's nobody that does that. Big Gigantic does it with drums and saxophone. Nobody else does it with guitar. Nobody else does it where they're playing the whole track off of the computer and then they're augmenting it live. So for us, that was like the whole thing. Is like, how are we going to make this something that's special, something different, something new? That's my whole goal. Is because I don't know if you've noticed, I'm not the best musician in the world.
I noticed a little earlier today. I'd never noticed before, though, ever. 15 years.
I'm not sure you guys have realized this. I'm no Victor Wooten.
Thank goodness. The world only needs one.
But to survive when you're not the best musician, you have to be different enough that it matters. And I'll cite the Ramones. That's who I cite. Those guys were not good musicians, but they were themselves. They sounded like the Ramones, and they started a whole movement. They started a whole culture, a whole genre of music. And it's like, that's what the Disco Biscuits did. Now,
if only you guys had as cool a logo as the Ramones, you could probably be cleaning up in the T-shirt circuit.
Now, we chose the two least popular styles of music to fuse together.
At the time, especially with the... So let's go back a little bit in time, speaking of least popular type of music. What was it like when you guys first started incorporating electronic music, when you were literally the only people doing that on the jam band scene and really in the live music scene? Like,
Magner got this keyboard, the JP8000, and on 1998, the Halloween of 1998, we all took a bunch of acid and played a 2.5-hour Run Like Hell at the show with like a Morning Dew in it.
Was that at the TLA?
No, it was at the Phi Sig. It was at the Phi Sig fraternity on Locust Walk at University of Pennsylvania. And it was actually weird because like this other band, the Mad Hatters, had been at Penn for years. They were a Penn band, and they used to do Halloween at Phi Sig, and you couldn't get in. It would be like, it was like you couldn't get into this fraternity. And I remember like as a freshman and a sophomore, as a junior, we were like, oh God, the Mad Hatters are so huge. I even saw them at the theater of Madison Square Garden opening up for Blues Traveler on New Year's Eve. And I was like, these guys from Penn, they're like Penn kids. They're playing the theater at MSG with Blues opening up for Blues Traveler at the fucking theater of MSG on New Year's Eve. It was like, and I was like, we got to get that Halloween gig at Phi Sig, And like 1 year, like 98, now it's like 5-6 years. We've been at Penn, and we've been a band now for 3 years. And finally, like the Mad Hatters aren't playing like Halloween at Phi Sig, and it opened up, and we're like, yes, we're getting the gig. This is the prime gig to get. And like nobody showed up. It was like, and Magner, and it's probably a good thing because we played a 2.5-hour version of Run Like Hell with like a Morning Dew about an hour 45 into it. Like somehow. But we took acid, like any self-respecting Halloween jam band, and we We,
Of course.
yeah, like we took acid and we got in there and we had a full set list that we didn't play because we never figured out a way to get out of the Run Like Hell that we were in because we were on acid. We were like just...
Good thing you were all on the same acid, huh?
Yeah. And then, but Magner had this new keyboard, the JP8000. JP8000! And
which is probably completely antiquated now.
Oh, it's never antiquated. I was just talking to a keyboard player the other day who was like, how about that JP8000? I'm like, really? And he's like, never goes out of style. It's a, I've told Magner 100 times, get rid of all your keyboards except your organ, your piano, and your JP8000. That's what we did in 1999. That was the magic. Everyone's like, 99 was the fucking magic. The guy had 3 keyboards.
Could have been the acid in 99, too.
Really strong. Really good. So in 98, though, the acid set off the firemost lengthy version of Run Like Hell. And we got out of there, and we were all like, what's up with that? And from there, because Sam Altman, our previous drummer, had started to play over like a 4 on the floor beat just like in September of 98. We were at a fraternity party in Penn State and we were playing Run Like Hell, and he like we that was like our first electronic thing that we ever did was Run Like Hell. We was a 4 on the floor song, but slow. It's like a slow song on the album.
Do you think Sam knew what he was doing with that beat, or
I think we just I don't know. To be honest, he probably
was he just
a really
tired?
smart
That's all
guy.
he could do.
He's a really smart guy. He probably did. It was like we sped the song up and it automatically turned into like house music, and then we sped it up a little more than that and it turned into like trance beat. And then we took some more acid and sped it up a little bit more, and everybody was like, slow down! Slow down! But that was like the turning point. Like, fall of 98, the beat came in, and then it sparked off this idea in Aaron to get an electronic keyboard.
So what was the reaction like with other bands on the scene and club owners and venue bookers and stuff when you started incorporating this? Was it confusion? Was it excitement?
I think that at very first we lost a lot of steam because not that we had any steam in 98, like really, like it was like at first
you didn't even have anyone at the fraternity house for how long?
We had Fish fans were into us because we were promoting and doing after show Fish parties and stuff, and I think it was like it didn't take at first in the Fish scene. When we went electronic, it was like the fans we had built up were like, this isn't what we're into. We're not into electronic music. We're into analog, acoustic, whatever, jam band music. So that's when we needed to, the first time that we needed to start making our own fans. And we actually, when things started to blow up, it all happened at Wetlands. That's like where everything started to blow up. So we did start making our own fans, but we got these really great slots at Wetlands on, I think it was 12/30 and 12/31 of 98.
Post Fish.
It was just like a month after we got that Mad Hatter's gig and it didn't work out. We had been eyeing the Post Fish gig because every year whoever got that gig blew up. It was like Mo got it one year, Strange Folk did it.
Deep in that blackout.
Whoever got those gigs blew up, and we had been eyeing it. And our manager was Chris Zahn, and he ran the place. And finally we got the slots, and we came in, and we were at that point we were kind of doing our own thing. But we had only been doing it for a month or two, so we weren't deep enough into it to alienate the whole entire Fish fan base. But we were deep enough into it that when they showed up, we had enough of our own sound. Right. Yeah, and we had enough of our own sound that people were like into it. It was like, cool. These guys are now doing their own thing, and they're good at it. And those shows are 12/30/98 in particular. We played a Mindless Dribble. It was really, really good. And the people I remember people leaving that show saying that we had outplayed Fish on that particular night, you know what I mean? And it was like, I don't know if we actually outplayed Fish on that particular night. I'm sure that we didn't. It was 98 Biscuits versus 98 Fish. Like, honestly, I'm sure that the Fish show was better than the Biscuit show. But people had a good enough of experience at Wetlands to walk away from those two shows with the vibe that the Biscuits were legit. We came back and played 330 and 4 199. And 4 months later, we did another 2-night stand at Wetlands, and those sold out. And those were like our first 4 sold out shows at Wetlands, and that was it. That was the beginning of our career. That was
the launching of the rocket.
It launched us into the national scene because Fish had the ability of bringing people from all over the country into New York, and then we had a national fan base right there in front of us.
People all went home.
They went home and
seeked out the tapes, told other friends, spread those tapes around.
And it went from us having nobody at our shows countrywide to suddenly there was, 300 people at every show, everywhere that we went, 200, 300, 400 at every show. And it came in conjunction with a couple of things, like Andy Gadiel had his Fish blog at the time, and he blogged about the shows, and that was a huge deal. Like these are little moments in time. Andy Bernstein had the Farmer's Almanac, and he had his From the Bottom section. So in terms of attacking the Fish scene, we were hitting it from all angles, and it was creating a really nice fan base across the country for us. But again, you get to that point in your career where you're like, okay, we need to create our own fans. We need to create fans that have never seen Fish before.
Right. And although all those Fish fans came down from the shows at the Garden and came to the Wetlands, and that helped spread you out, not long after that, there was also a big backlash against you guys.
In the Fish scene.
In the jam band scene. There were a lot of people, like,
huge
you weren't
backlash.
even that popular, yet there were people had to choose sides, whether you liked or hated the Disco Biscuits. There weren't a lot of people in the in-between.
They started to hate us
Yeah.
quickly, which meant that we were getting big. That's what that means.
And that you were doing something new that nobody really understood.
I've always taken the hatred to mean that we're good. That's what I've always taken it to mean. Because if people don't hate you and people don't love you, then people don't know you. You know what I mean? And then there's nothing there. Like, you know what I mean? If there's no love and if there's love, there's got to be hate. It's just got to happen. Hating
means they're paying attention.
I mean, hating is just like, it's different. There's 2 kinds of haters. There's the people who hate you, which I've always thought means that they're paying attention, like you say. And then there's your fans that hate, which that's just love. Like, you know what I mean? There's like, so the fan hate you take as, it's just like how much they love you, and they want it to be they want it to be perfect, and they want you to practice, and they want you to work hard, and they want it to be that moment that they remember. Everybody's trying to recreate a moment in their life, and if they can't recreate that moment, that high, that adrenaline rush that they had that one specific time, then it could very quickly turn into internet hate. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's them, sometimes it's us. Sometimes we don't practice and we play a bad show. Sometimes it's just that no matter what we do, it's not going to feel like the first time. You know what I mean? It's like the first time is the first time. You can't ever recreate a first experience. It's different the second time, the 20th time, the 180th time. It's at some point, and a lot of people need a break. I went through this as a fan with Fish, you know what I mean? I hated 97 and 98, and I took a break. I was like, stop going to see Fish for a while. Then I came back with an attitude of like, who it doesn't matter so much, you know what I mean? It's just music. I need to just go and have fun. Like, if I'm going to go and not have fun at this concert because it's not exactly what I want it to be, that's my problem. I'm not the one up there. I'm the one down here watching it, and I need to just accept what it is or not come, and like, so I have my own band, so I'm the one up there, and then we get to control what it is, and it's like, if you don't like what it is, then a lot of people do, and on any given night somebody likes it and somebody doesn't like it. The set list, whatever, it's like so many issues, man. This stuff spins around in my head. It's been going in my head for like 15, 16, 17 years. How do you please everyone? You don't. You can't please everyone. So.
Not even everybody likes the Rolling Stones.
Right, and they hate, well, I mean, look at Nickelback. Everyone hates Nickelback.
Not me.
How did they end up being the biggest, richest band in the whole history of the world if everyone hates them? Well, clearly not everyone hates them. Okay? So it is what it is, and as the music scene, as the technology changes, everything becomes more about niche fans and less about becoming a superstar. It's less about the dream of being a superstar and more about having a niche market where you can exist in the long term. You know what I mean? You got to be able to pay those mortgage bills we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast. But,
all right, now speaking of hate, throughout 98 and 99, you built up a lot of steam, people hating you, but a lot more people loving you. And then hate crept into the band. And then for a while, you weren't in the Disco Biscuits.
6 months. It felt like 6 years.
Yeah, you probably know exactly how many days, too, don't you?
January 8th, 1990, January 8th, 2000 until August 29th. But actually, July 12th, 2000 was when we announced to the band that I was going to be rejoining the band. And it wasn't until Wetlands at the Electron show on August 29th when the Biscuits came out and we did and everybody cried, and it was like,
there wasn't a dry eye in the house that night. I remember that.
There was a lot of nights in that period of time where there weren't a dry eye in the house, and it's just like,
what was going on in the band that led you to not be there anymore?
Can I be honest about it?
That's the only thing I'll accept.
I've never been honest about it before. That was back before we knew about Tuesday Bluesday. Okay? So Tuesday Bluesday is when you take a lot of fucking ecstasy on the weekend. On Tuesday, you're depressed. Your serotonin goes down.
Not Monday.
Okay? No.
Monday, you're still riding
the high. If you party on Saturday, it's a 3-day cycle where Sunday you're still high, Monday you're still high, you don't feel it, but you are. And then on Tuesday, when the shit's leaving your system for real, it's a 36-hour thing. And when you're actually leaving your system, you lose control of yourself. At least I lose control of myself. People get sad. The internet turned, Sunday you play a show Saturday night. Sunday everyone loves the show. Monday everybody had a great time, but there was a couple weird things about the show. And then on Tuesday it becomes like the hatred day on the internet, and it was a cultural thing. I look back and I'm like, wow, this was happening to everybody back then. We were all depressed on Tuesdays. And then it became a term, Tuesday Bluesday. You know what I mean? And then and now it's like a joke. Because, if you party still, if you're still in your late 30s and you decide that you want to go to a fucking show and take drugs, you better well know that on Tuesday, if you're feeling a little depressed, it's because of the drugs you took. Once you have that consciousness that the feeling that you're having at that moment is directly related to what you did on the weekend, you can beat it.
Right.
You can beat the blues.
You know
days.
What you're up against.
When you
get past it.
It's like that movie. Have you ever seen that movie, What the Bleep Are We? Or what that movie where they talk about polypeptides. They talk about people who have rage. Well, what rage is a chemical reaction in your brain. There's polypeptides get released out of your brain and into your bloodstream. And if you're paying attention when you go into a rage, you can actually feel the chemicals drop. I've actually feel
the sensation lower through your body.
The sensation lower through your body. That's chemicals getting released from your brain into your body. And if you are consciously aware of that, you can send those chemicals packing and get control over it. And I'll tell you right now that in October of 1999, I took so many drugs one weekend when we were in Vegas.
I remember that weekend.
You didn't have the best weekend of your life. And I then went on into a bus and took a bunch of Xanax and slept 22 hours straight and woke up in Mississippi. And we went from the highs of partying in Vegas on the Strip and having all of our fans from all over the country. Hold on one second. So we're having an incredible weekend. We're partying on the Strip. We've got, I'm pretty sure that we had a double suite going on at the Bellagio, which had just opened up. Yep. Magner's girlfriend at the time was loaded, and we were it was a party.
There were suites all over the Strip with your fans that night. It was party bouncing. Andy Bernstein was on rollerblades that weekend. I remember going in and out of casinos with him on rollerblades, me on acid.
We had an incredible, incredible time there. And what happened was we weren't well enough at the time. We weren't smart enough or experienced enough to know that with
You're still not that smart, but now you're experienced.
With incredible highs come desperate lows. And I remember the feeling that I had in the hotel room in Mississippi of desperation that I've had so many other times since that moment, you know what I mean? But I've ultimately figured out that it was drug-related depression. And
Ultimately, but back then you didn't.
I had no fucking idea. It took me it was like another 6 years past that until I realized what had happened then. Now, listen, to say that it was only drug-related would be discounting the fact that, there's strong personalities within the Disco Biscuits, and there's strong personalities. It wasn't, we fought, we used to fight. It wasn't only drug related, but I bet you that if you were to look, I'm not sure that everybody in the Disco Biscuits even agrees that with me that there's drug related depressions that come after huge amounts of drugs that get used. You know what I mean? Up until this day, I'm not sure that we've all figured that out, but I know for myself, if I'm going to party on a Saturday, that next week I'm on high alert, straight up. I have a wife and I have kids now, and if I'm going to come home from a Saturday night of partying, I'm not going to ruin my fucking family's week about it. It's really important to me that what I do on my weekends doesn't affect negatively my life at home, my business that I do. And I'm sure my managers can, if you were to podcast my managers, they would give you a different view of Tuesdays, But Tuesdays are tough. Tuesdays are fucking tough. And that was my first really, really, really tough Tuesday that I can remember. And I was it was actually a Wednesday still, but I was crying, we got into a fight and I just didn't go to the show. I skipped a show. We got into a huge fight and I was like, fuck you guys, I quit, I quit. Who does that?
Did the band play the show without you?
I don't know what the fuck happened. I know they went there. It was a 2-night thing we had going on at 2 different fraternities, and I don't think they actually ended up playing that night. But I remember a couple days later thinking hope maybe everybody will forget that I quit the band and skipped the show, you know what I mean? And we came back around and we had this incredible show at Irvine Auditorium and an incredible show at the Somerville Theater and one at the Recker Theater. This is now coming to the end of October, the Halloween weekend. And then we came around and had these TLA shows for the end of the 90s, 1230 and 1231.99. This stuff is something to be said for when we're fighting. We play we play with all of our hearts and souls, you know what I mean? There's something to be said for looking back at some of the best weeks of music that we've ever had and to take a look at how the band was doing at that time. When things are great between the band, maybe not musically as great as when things are bad between the band. I don't know if that's true, but I mean, maybe my theory behind that is, well, when we're not talking to each other, once we get up on stage, we do start to communicate. We do talk. That's our only way of talking. And it gets emotional, and we get into it musically. And it creates great art. So, great art, it's like you ever try to write a song. I don't know if you've ever tried to write a song before, but if you ever tried to write a song, I know lots of people have out there listening to your podcast. If you ever try to write a song, well, my life is great, my wife cooks me breakfast, she did my laundry, it's like the angst that creates great art, when things are going bad, so we're coming out of that period of time. I wrote 17 songs, the Maui Project, the whole thing came out of that, and what the listeners may not know is that the guy I'm sitting here with, Jake, the next 12 years of Disco Biscuits, for better or for worse, we owe it all to Jake, because I was out of the music world. I was going to go back to school. I wasn't going to do it anymore. And
you were positive you weren't going to play music.
Positive. I was I had gone through this experience and failed. And I couldn't handle the failure of I had this dream that the Disco Biscuits were going to play Red Rocks and the Disco Biscuits were going to play the theater at Madison Square Garden. Forget the Madison Square Garden, you know, which I'm still dreaming about, you know, but I had a dream that we were going to play at all of these places, the Hammerstein Ballroom, Roseland. I'd seen so many concerts at places where I had seen concerts I wanted to play. I had, you know, that's where it all came from, the Mann Center. You know, that was my dream. In 94, 95, I saw fit. Maybe the dream was unrealistic. You know, I took acid at the fucking Mann Center and saw a couple of great Fish shows.
Was it unrealistic?
Now I need to play the Mann Center. Well, 17 years later, I accomplished it. But this was at a time now that the accomplishment seemed impossible to reach, because John was the genius in my mind. John was the reason. He was the reason I had the possibility to ever get to that point. John was writing songs. I was trying to keep up. I was trying to write songs, but he was writing really brilliant stuff. I mean, really, I still look at it 20 years later and I'm like, wow, this guy went through a period of his life where the creativity was just a well of creativity that could not be dried up. It was incredible what he was doing. And
not just songs, but whole rock operas.
I was the biggest fan of all of his. Like, I'm the biggest John fan, you know what I mean? But like, us getting along on tour was never the easiest thing. And so, you know, that was what happened. I took too many fucking drugs. And maybe it wasn't just that one weekend. Maybe it was the whole year of just taking too many drugs.
Oh, it couldn't have just been that one weekend. I'm sure it was a build-up, like with anybody who you know, has behavioral difficulties stemming from drug use. But what happened after that Mississippi weekend, or that midweek in Mississippi? Like, how did the next 6 weeks go before you ended up quitting the band? How rough
Well,
was
I
it?
didn't quit the band. I quit the band in Mississippi. And then I was hoping that everyone forgot about that. And then we played the show, and I kind of knew when we were on stage playing Little Shimmy and Nug Huffer in the fourth set of the TLA show at New Year's, a couple tears started coming down my face, and that's only happened once or twice in my whole entire career, like maybe 5 times under where actual
The other 3 guys had a discussion that you weren't involved in that said, we got to get rid of this guy.
I kind of knew that was coming, but I was hoping that it wasn't coming. But I had the thought, I was like, this may be the last notes that I ever play with the Disco Biscuits, you know? Then on January 8th, they came together with me. They had a meeting with me, and John handed me $3,000 in cash and was like, here's your share of New Year's or whatever. I was like, $3,000! I was like, we're rich! I went out to a fancy dinner with Deb, and I was like, well, at least we're rich. You know, we have 3.
So he handed you the $3,000, and then he said, that's it. You're not a Disco Biscuit anymore.
You're fired. And I was like, okay. That was sort of, saw that coming, you know, but at least I got this $3,000 to sit back on. You know, $3,000, woo! It was like I'd never seen that much money in my life at that point in my life. So I was really, really excited about the $3,000, but I was really depressed about the Biscuits. And the next, 12 years are a little foggy. but we definitely, there was a point in time where I remember we went to a studio on 29th Street or something for some jam session. Bill Stites, Carol Wade, DJ Stitch. Who else was there?
Max Delaney.
Yeah, Matt. Was he at the jam session?
Maybe Max wasn't.
I don't think he was at that
We had
jam
to drive
session.
up to Massachusetts.
Yeah, we got him.
Was Jamie Shields down there at that one?
No, this was just a jam.
Just a jam.
This was just a jam.
That's right. Before the Maui Project started.
Before the Maui Project.
That's the time I tricked you into playing music again.
You tricked me into playing music. And
because you were... Right after you left the band, you wanted to quit music, and then you needed work, because that $3,000 you went through pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I gave you a quick training session at the Wetlands.
Started doing lights.
How to do lights and DJ, because I was like, I can give this guy $100 a night to come work at the club.
It was great. I was lighting director at Wetlands for a couple months. I did Low Favor Band I remember doing the Low Favor Band while the Biscuits were playing at the Roxy. That was one of the hardest nights of my life. It was the worst. The Biscuits were in New York. There was all this shit going on, and everyone was so excited. Chris Zahn was there was a new fucking bass player. It was all happening, and I was down at the Wetlands in the lighting booth. I had a great time at the light doing lights, but I remember that was a really, really difficult night for me. But back to the jam session, I wrote 2 songs the next day based off of one bass line that I happened into at the jam session. I'll never forget the bass line. I was just like sitting there and I was like, boom, damn gone, and while it was happening, I don't remember who was playing drums at that jam session, but I remember Stitch was scratching on his...
Was it Dave Hoffman?
Could have been Hoffman. Yeah. And I just remember like hitting this rhythm, and I remember thinking, I'm pretty good. I was like, this bass line's pretty fucking nasty right now. It's like, and right in that moment, it was like, that was the moment. There was a moment. There's one moment that I can trace back to my life getting back on track, and it all started with you asking me to come to a jam session, and then me getting into a good bass line in the jam session. And I went home, and it just re-inspired me, and then you helped me put a band together, and it was, we had a couple months, because this was January, this was late January, and we had 3 months because we chose my birthday, April 8th, to do the Maui project at Wetlands, and that was incredible. I mean, we put David Hoffman, and we put Max Delaney, and we had these singers.
Ollie on percussion.
Who were the singers?
I don't remember.
We had those two, black girl singers in the Maui project. I don't know even where we got them. Paul Lee was on percussion. Jamie Shields, I remember showing up like 3 days beforehand, and he's like, yeah, don't worry, I got it, man, I got it. I was like, no, you really need to learn these songs. And he's like, no, it's fine, I got it. And
Speaking of professional musicians.
Yeah, he did have it, sort of. Like, he's not a practicer, necessarily. He just gets it and then has it. And that whole thing made me really nervous with Jamie Shields, not really putting time into it, but it was, I don't want to say it was the best night of music that I've ever played, but it was one of the best nights that I've ever had musically, because it was, it wasn't about the music, it was about the vibe.
And it was an incredible vibe. I remember I went out and bought all these National Geographic DVDs of underwater scenes and aquariums, and we projected them all around the club that night. We tried to turn the Wetlands into Hawaii for the night.
Everyone had leis, and we asked everyone to wear Hawaiian shirts, and it was the Maui project. And that was what happened, was all these songs got written, not just by me, but on the Biscuits side. They wrote Crickets and Munchkins and Crystal Ball, and there was so many of them. I can't even, when I got back into the Biscuits, I had to learn 15 new songs, and they had to learn 15 new songs. So the breakup created a wealth of material that became the backbone and foundation of the next 5 years of the Disco Biscuits, and probably, I'm not sure that if we had we not broken up, those songs probably wouldn't have gotten written. Something else would have gotten written. And then who would the Disco Biscuits have been? It's just one thing leads to another, and ultimately, it led to that next half a decade of huge success that we were having. And that was never easy either. It never got easy. It's never gotten easy. There was never a time where being in the Disco Biscuits was easy, but it's always been fun.
Now, lately, after you guys got back together, you still toured pretty heavily and relentlessly. Then, since about 2005, 2006, you guys have played shows a lot less frequently.
Well,
yet they've gotten bigger in
quit
size.
the band. Sammy quit the band, and then we had to get a new drummer. So we did play 50 shows the first year with Alan, and 60 the second, and then in 2009, we actually did 100 shows, and that might have burnt us out once and for all. That was we started doing drugs really heavily again after years and years of kind of taking it easy. We went out on the tour in February of 2009, and somebody gave us a ton of free drugs, and we had it for ourselves and just took it around the country with us. And it was every night Barbara was trying really hard to control me, really hard trying to
control your drug intake,
to keep me in line. No, control my drug intake. I was getting out of control, and he's always been much more reserved with how much drugs he takes when we're partying. He's been really he's good, much better about it than I am. I'm much more addictive personality, and I just get going. I want to party all fucking night long, and stay up until 10 in the morning. And he's more just about the show, and when it's he used to say things like, if you're going to take steroids, you don't take them in the 10th inning, when the game's over, you take the steroids before the game to get,
Yeah.
It's all about musical steroids. It's about putting us in a mind frame where we could fucking nail it, and we nailed it all year long. It's funny because everyone was always like, 99, why don't you fucking play like you fucking played in 99, Well, now it's like, 09, what happened to 09, like, and people don't realize that when you go so hard, you create incredible art, but then it kills itself. It killed itself. In 99, it killed itself. We went too hard and we died from it. And then in 09, the same thing happened. We went too hard and we came around, and in 10, we were punching walls, and it's just like, there's a balance. There's a balance for the Disco Biscuits that we have to find. And, like you just said, now we barely play. But instead of doing 500 people in every small market on Wednesdays and Thursdays, when we do come together, we play in a 5,000 person place or 6,000 or 10,000 person place. And then those 400 or 500 kids from every sub-market, because we've always been big in the cities. But it's like, the hard part is you've been a band for 17 years, and I know there's a lot of bands out there that go through this. Because Conspirator opens for Humphreys McGee now, and I know, like, some nights you do 8,000 people and some nights you do 800 people. And I'm sure that Humphreys is more like, centered and balanced than I am, but I have a hard time with that, When you go from playing Red Rocks and then the next show is in Kansas City and there's 200 people at it, you're like, what the fuck is going on in our career? What the fuck? But when those 200 kids who were in Kansas City, they'll come to any of our big shows, and as will everybody, and it's just made the shows. Now 500 kids come from everywhere, and there's 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 at the shows. And that's really what our dream was all along, was to, not to be making a lot of money, not to be playing in front of a lot of people, but, it's not about making ourselves feel good.
But now it's an event when you play.
It's about throwing events. It's about throwing the biggest, best party for the fan. It's about the fans, Ultimately, it's about the fans. Ultimately, and it's, when we throw a city bisco and we bring all of the fans together like that, and there's something special about that. The fans may not agree with this, but there's something special about that can't be replicated by going out on tour and dogging it out every night. It's not the same. And when people walk out of there and they're like, that was the most magnificent, special weekend of all time, I implore them to understand that the only reason that works is because we're not on tour. We wouldn't play the Mann Center if we were out on tour. We would have to play the Electric Factory or the Tower, which would be great too. But my dream is to play the fucking Mann Center. And I finally accomplished that, and I accomplished Red Rocks, multiple times over. And we're playing the theater at Madison Square Garden on New Year's, just like I went to see Blues Traveler do those couple years in the early 90s. Man, I thought this shit was all going to happen a lot faster, to be quite honest with you. I really did. I thought that we would be doing all of these things that we're doing now 10 years ago. That's how stupid I was. I thought that a bunch of guys who barely know how to sing and take a lot of drugs could just get up on stage and instantly be at Madison Square Garden. But it's not how it works. How it works is hard work and dedication. And to be there 17 years later, that's the dedication. To still have 4 guys who say, hey, let's go play the First Bank Center in Colorado, That's the dedication. The dedication is we're still here, and it's on our terms now. It's not what we thought we were supposed to be doing. It's what we know we can do and still survive. That's the most important thing. It's about survival. And if we were to do what the fans want us to do, there would be nothing left. It would be over forever. And, I want it to be over never. I want to be, and I want to be having this conversation in 10 years with you, where we say, you remember that time 10 years ago where you were saying, well, maybe one day you will play Madison Square Garden? I believe that we will.
I think it'll only be 7 years based on the cycles. 2019, they'll have come up with a whole new set of drugs for you guys to get hooked and implode on, and that'll lead you to the garden.
Somebody said something to me. Michael Travis said last week that he goes, when I told you that String Cheese had broken up, do you want to know what your response was? And I said, what was my response? And he goes, you turn to me and you go, hey, that's the best move you can make. We've broken up 5 times, and every time we get twice as big. and I said to him, but was I right? And he was like, you were definitely right. Like, String Cheese has blown up on the tail end of breaking up. Now they sell out their Red Rock shows, 3 or 4 of them in a row in one day, and the Gorge, and when they play Hampton, they do 11,000 people, and it's like, there wasn't that. That wasn't String Cheese before they broke up. Something about breaking up makes people appreciate it more.
That's
and then
right.
when you come back around, they come in bigger droves. I don't know what it is. I don't claim to understand.
Remember, there was a band in the Wetlands days that called Dispatch.
Oh.
Remember, Dispatch used to be a $50 band on Wednesday nights. I'd book them, and then they got to the point where they headlined a night. Then they headlined 2 nights, and then they sold out 2 nights. Then they went to Irving Plaza. They played 1 show at Roseland. They broke up. Remember when they reunited?
Madison Square Garden.
3 nights at Madison Square Garden.
They had 1 arena show before that. Before they broke up, they played the Worcester Centrum.
They did, all right. They played the Hat Shell up in Boston,
Like-
too, and supposedly 100,000 people came. That was their breakup show.
Right. So that's like the thing. You break up and you come back and you're playing the Garden. What? Like, really? Well, for us, it's like, I don't want to break up anymore.
You're done breaking up now, probably.
I don't want to.
So?
I don't want to break up anymore. I think that just the rumor of breaking up does enough for you. You know what I mean? I don't want to go.
I heard you guys are breaking up after New Year's this year.
This year?
I heard that. Have you heard that?
Bro, I put in Disco Biscuits into Google the other day just because I was like thinking from a manager standpoint, like what happens if you put it as the whole front page Disco Biscuit stuff? Is the book still there? I just haven't done it in like 8 years. I put it into Google, and as I got, how it gives you presumptive, as I got through the word biscuit, it said it came up as Disco Biscuits breaking up was the first thing that came up, and I clicked on it. I was like, we are? Oh shit, the Disco Biscuits are breaking up. So I clicked on it, and it was, of course, all Fantasy Tour threads, and I don't read Fantasy Tour. I haven't been on Fantasy Tour in 6 years. If I see it, I turn away and go in another direction.
You should get one of those parental blocks on your computer.
For PT.
More porn, less PT.
So I don't go on that. I don't ever go on there, but I saw the, biscuits are breaking up, biscuits are breaking up, biscuits are breaking up, and all
And you're
the
like,
different things.
You just see dollar signs when you see that, right?
And I'm like, yeah, biscuits are breaking up. Like, I think at this point people get it. They know that some people would rather we go, like, people come on my Facebook page and be like, this is my Facebook page voice. I'd rather fucking you guys go away like fish for a couple years and come back when you mean it than having to go see 10 subpar shows a year, Like,
Abe Simpson says.
I think we're playing.
But they don't have to come to those 10 subpar shows.
I think we're playing pretty well right now, to be honest. Like, because we're happy to come to the shows. Like, Barbara is psyched and I'm psyched. When we show up, we fucking hug, It's like, I haven't seen him in 3 months and I'm like, bro, what's up? Give me a hug, And like, when we nail it on stage, there's another hug. Like, and it's just like,
when you're hugging him, do you just dig your fingernails into his back just a little to bring some of that hatred back so that it'll come out on stage?
yeah, well, here's the thing, And there comes a certain point where you realize that the good shows come from listening to each other, and listening to each other is an easy enough thing to do. So, we've gotten old enough to know how to play good shows. The key to listening to each other is wanting to be there. If you want to be there, then you're going to listen to the guys in the band. And the key to wanting to be there is not driving yourself into the ground over and over and over again, playing the same songs 17 years later, So if you want to have fun playing them, don't play them that much, And people, man, this stuff is hard for me because I'm a fan of other bands. It's hard for me to know. I'm not the most grounded person in the world. I'm a mess, I'm admittedly a mess. So, like, I overthink this stuff, and like where other people are so like classy and so casual about like the whole issue of like fans and what they think and what they tell you and what they want, and it's hard for me. I struggle with it. I struggle with this stuff because I want everyone to be happy. That's something that's never going to change about me. I want every fan to be happy. So I know it's not possible, but I struggle trying to keep people happy. And if you think people trying to keep our fans happy in the Disco Biscuits is hard, you should try being a conspirator for a couple fucking days, because we're playing the music that our fans don't even like. You know, I'm going to have to start a whole new fan base right now. And this girl came up to me last week after the last Conspirator show we played, and she said, man, I'm a Conspirator hater. Like huge Biscuit fan, pissed at you guys for being a band right now. Conspirator, that is. And she said, but I gotta say, that show tonight was fucking awesome. And I was like, well, tell me more. I want to hear more about this. She said, well, here's the thing. I was like, I want to hear what your real thoughts are. I don't want you to just say, I hated it and now I love it. I want to know, from a business owner's perspective, what's working. She said, well, a year and a half ago I came to see you, and you know, you were playing some Biscuit songs, and it was like, this isn't the Biscuits, you know. Now it's Conspirator through and through. You have all your own songs, you have your own sound, your own style, and it doesn't make me think the Biscuits are better than this, because you're not comparing yourselves to the Biscuits musically on stage. You're just doing your own thing. And now that you're doing your own thing, I could dig it. She's like, I really like it. I get it. I see where you guys are going, and I'm a big supporter now. And it was like, man, that we're not trying to get Biscuit fans to like us, because I hope they all do. These are my fans that I've built up over 20 years, and I hope that ultimately they can take a deep breath and listen to what we're doing and hear it with an open mind and not try to compare it to something else, and have respect for the fact that we're not trying to rehash our old catalog like further. With all due respect to Sergio Russo and his merry band of pranksters, they imagine if Bob Weir and Phil Lesh went out and tried to play in a band with all new songs, like, they certainly wouldn't be selling out Madison Square Garden, It's hard to do what we're trying to do. We're starting over completely from fucking scratch, completely starting over. New music, new band, new everything, new fans. But as it builds and grows and gets better, and we've had a year with the same drummer, and as that continues to grow, some of these people from over here are starting to notice and have that kind of respect and let go of the fact that it's not the Biscuits. Like, people hate on Machete, but they don't really hate Machete. He's not Barber. That's the thing. Like, they don't really hate Machete. They just wish he was Barber. But now that they realize it's, a year goes by, 2 years go by, and they're like, okay, well, this is the new reality. So, it's
like it takes sports fans time when a quarterback changes.
You're either with it or you're not with it. Brother, it didn't take me any time yesterday when we changed from Sanchez to McElroy. I was like, who's McElroy? They were like, he's from Alabama. I was like, McElroy!
Anybody with Sanchez.
Right, where did McElroy come from? I thought we were going Tebow. I love it, dude. Tebow kind of sucks. We all know Tebow kind of sucks, so. But, musically, it's a struggle. It's never going to not be a struggle to, to appease the people out there. And so, our whole thing is to just do what we do. This is what we do. The Biscuits play 20 shows a year. Take it or leave it. If you don't want to come to those 20, you don't have to. We're going to be over here having a gigantic fucking party. It's like, and with Conspirator, it's the same thing. Like, take it or leave it. I post the pictures on Facebook for multiple reasons. One, I want people to see what we're looking at from the stage. I know that the fans want to see pictures of us more than they want to see pictures of them, because I can tell, because I have the likes on Facebook. So, I'll post a picture of us and it'll get 500 likes. I'll post a picture of them and it'll get 78 likes. So I know that they want to see us, not them. But there's multiple reasons that I put the pictures up of them. And number one is, I think it's really fucking cool what we're looking at. When places going off, it just looks incredible to me, and I want to share my view with the fans, number one. And number two, admittedly, and probably not like, the most incredible, like incredibly, like, I don't know the right word. It's probably not the most righteous thing in the world. I want the people who hate on us for doing it to see that we're being successful in it. I want that vibe to come across. Like, okay, you may be hating us, and I appreciate that. We're going to be over here with these 1,200 people who are freaking out and having a great time. And that's a little ridiculous, but like in the back of my head, I'd be lying to you, and you said, I'll be honest. I'd be lying if I didn't, I want people to see that Conspirator's doing really well, because in the back of my mind, I think to myself, if there's one hater out there and they can look at that picture and be like, wow, that shit's going pretty well. Like, maybe I should go and see what everybody's jumping around about. You know what I mean? Because the truth is that most of the haters don't even know what they're hating on. You know what I mean? Might hate Nickelback, but honestly, I don't know I've ever heard a Nickelback song in my life. I'm just hating them because that's what everyone hates them. I thought you were supposed to hate them.
It is pretty popular to hate on them.
I mean, it's popular. When it becomes popular to hate on something, it's hard to beat that back, It's like hard when it becomes the cool thing to hate on. And Conspirator has most certainly in our world been the cool thing to hate on for the last 18 months. And I get defensive about it. I really do. I wish I was a bigger person. I wish that sometimes I wish that I can just take it all in stride. And I think I'm getting better at it. The other day, somebody wrote on the Conspirator Facebook page that they would support us more if they got rid of Brownstein. And I laughed so hard. It made me laugh so hard. I smiled.
Years ago, it would have made you cry.
I mean, yeah, back in the day, I would have cared what people think. But, I don't care really what people think anymore because I get it. I've got 3 kids and my wife, and that's the most important thing in the world. Okay? And then people have you ever seen the movie Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back thing. You have to that's what it is. It's not me, it's everyone. So why am I going to let it bother me? You know what I mean? So over the last couple of years, I've gotten really good about not letting this stuff bother me. But with Conspirator, it started to get back to me again because it is hard. I am doing something. I am trying really hard, working really hard, trying to be successful at something that's new, and it's hard. It's a really tough position to be in. I talk to the guys in Kyoto about it sometimes because I'm like, how do you guys deal with it? Going from this big thing over here to this small thing over here, and just doing it because you love it. Ultimately, that's the deal. We do what we love. And we have to just be true to yourself artistically. You can't, I'm not going to love all this music. All this great electronic music came out in the last couple of years. And it's cool to hate on it because now it's pop. So it became cool to hate on it. But I love it because I love music. I don't think about what's cool and what's not cool.
Do you feel any sense of vindication at how big EDM's gotten since you were one of the earliest proponents of it?
Well, I'm psyched that we're reaping the rewards of the genre having gotten really big, and it is getting big in a way where EDM kids also Lotus and Sector 9 and the Disco Biscuits. It has come back around to where the EDM scene is fueling into the jam band EDM world as well, and everybody's doing great. Lotus is doing great. Sector 9 is doing great. Everyone is doing great. I wouldn't say that I feel vindication, but But like Dan Berkowitz said to me last week, he said, I think that the foresight that you guys had 14 years ago to say we should make a festival where it's bands and DJs and it goes all the way through the night, that was probably the smartest thing that anybody that I am in contact with in my life has ever done. that far in advance, to almost 15 years in advance, to have had a vision and then to have stuck with it through 8 years of miserable failures in terms of the electronic part of it. It didn't take. You went to some Camp Biscos, no? I mean, the Biscuits would get up off stage, we'd put the DJs on, and
everyone would go back to their tents.
Everyone would go back to their tents.
There'd be 100 people dancing.
There'd be 100 people watching Danny the Wild Child, or, DJ Wally, or Reed Speed.
Right.
And now Reed Speed is one of the biggest out there because she has a dubstep record label, and it's like, this is the thing. The thing is that it's blown up all around us, and I just can't believe it took so long, to be honest. I can't believe that it took so long for electronic music to take over. But,
it was always bubbling, just under the surface.
Always
And then
there.
it just exploded. It was like a volcano.
Right, and the problem is...
Just how many virgins got sacrificed into that EDM volcano?
The problem is that what's going to happen next? That's the scary thing, and that's why I like being where we are. Not really in a jam band, not really in an EDM thing.
Well, history would say that the EDM scene is going to implode pretty soon because it's gotten too big too quickly.
I just read an article on dubstep.net about it this morning. A whole
the fact that there's dubstep.net, that's indication number one of the bubble.
Right, and they're writing articles about how it's a bubble and it's going to burst, and they citing scientific reasons for why it's going to burst, and they're citing, they're citing, correlations between other bubbles bursting, not just in the music scene, and showing about ticket prices and talking about the promoters and how promoters are pushing things to a high ticket price and high guarantees before it has the fan base, and people are just being asked to trust and come spend $50 on an event with a bunch of acts that they're being told are huge. And all of the tenets of a bubble are there, and the bubble means, if you have a bubble, ultimately it's going to burst, and what's going to happen then? Well, that's why it's nice to have been in the Disco Biscuits for 17 years, because when you were in something for 17 years, it doesn't burst, it doesn't go away instantaneously. And for us with
Conspirator's doing something different. You're not
different.
Just a DJ up there, so
you're
still a band. You're still going to have a good portion of your crowd.
I'm hoping there's a vision. I'm hoping that this is another one of those visions where we're coming up with something that might end up being the big thing next. And I'll keep trying small things and out. And I don't even really, honestly, for us, like, it being the next big thing doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is being able to take care of my family. And Brendan Bayless from Humphreys McGee said, and that's the third time I said Humphreys McGee, and these guys are getting a nod in this podcast. He said something to me a couple of years ago. He said, a lot of people think of success as playing at Madison Square Garden in the music scene. I think of success as surviving and not having to get a real job. If you can continue doing this, pay your bills, and not have to get a real job, you're successful. And that had a huge impact on the way that I looked at. When he said that to me, I'll never forget that moment, because it changed the way that I think about things. People can say things once, and it can change your outlook forever. That's human beings are impressionable. So sometimes you'll hear somebody say something really smart and inspiring, and it can change your life forever. Like yesterday on Twitter, Rob Delaney said the most horrible thing that you can do to a person at this point is leave them a voicemail. And that's the worst, most horrible thing that you can do to somebody. And I read it and I laughed because it was funny. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, I'm never leaving another voicemail. That's it. I was Rob Delaney on Twitter with a joke, just changed the way that I view voicemail forever. One moment in my life just made me think, turn a switch in my brain where I was like, yeah, voicemail's fucking annoying. It's 2012. We don't fucking need voicemail. We have text message, we have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have everything, We don't need voicemail. And you know what's even worse than leaving a voicemail? Leaving a voicemail that's longer than 3 seconds long. Hey, it's Brownie, call me back. That's it. If you get into what you want to talk about, just write an email, brother. Just write an email. And so that's for me, that's what life is about, is am I going to be able to survive? Can I take care of my family? And can I do it with, if the Biscuits were to go away forever, would Conspirator be able to do that, And that's my goal. My goal is to make sure that
I better hope so, because I can't imagine you getting a real job.
Brother, I will.
I think the last time you had one, I was your boss, and that was as a DJ at Wetlands.
There is no question that is my last job that I ever had. That was it.
But thankfully, you are also the king of the side projects, and I hope that's something we can get into next time we talk, because we're about out of time tonight, but you have more side projects than anybody I've ever met.
My favorite one is clearly the Flying Circus. Right? No, Flacco All-Stars.
Yeah, the
Lavernia is cool.
Lavernia is cool. The Insane Luchadors.
The Insane Luchadors. That's the one I was going for. The Insane Luchadors. Yeah,
yeah,
we'll
but
get
you
into
have
it next
more
podcast.
side projects. You're a parent. We didn't talk about that really. You have your own nonprofit, headcount.org, which focuses on voter registration. You're a landlord. You're a sports car enthusiast. You're a watch enthusiast.
I love watches. I love a nice yuppie mobile.
He does. Right now he's wearing his fancy Rolex. I think the Breitling is back in the case.
Breitling's in the shop.
Which
yeah.
I think I inspired you to buy.
You sure did. You sure did. The Breitling is in the shop. $1,700 later, it's coming back. What's this?
$100 G-Shocks. That's all I wear now.
Right.
That's all I wear. I went to an Eminem concert. He was wearing a G-Shock. The Eminem Jay-Z concert.
Isn't it interesting how one moment in your life can change the way you perceive everything?
That's exactly
the same thing.
I went from having a $5,000 watch I thought I needed to impress people. Earlier today, you said, are we ever going to learn to dress right? And no.
Because it doesn't matter. You get to a certain point where you just want to be comfortable with yourself. It doesn't matter what other people think. Speaking of your $5,000 watch, where is that?
It's in a case somewhere in my underwear drawer.
You selling?
I don't know why you buying it. Right now, it's a $6,000 watch.
All right, we'll get to all this stuff in podcast number 117.
Exactly. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Get Your Rocks Off, our debut episode. We want to thank our sponsor, Rocks Off, for making this all possible. You can check us out at rocksoft.com. You can come on one of the amazing concerts we throw on boats. Mark can vouch for that.
Oh, incredible.
Incredible.
Take your Dramamine.
Incredible boat shows. Great experiences in New York City. Walking tours, concert cruises, concerts, and now podcasts. Kings of all media, as we like to say. Thanks for tuning in. See you soon.
Thanks for having me.